Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. Camping alone always sounded romantic to me. No distractions, no buzzing phones, no blaring TVs. Just me, the trees, and the stars overhead. A chance to clear my head, get back to basics, figure out who I was again after the mess of the last year. That was the idea. Anyway, I found a place nobody talked about much. A quiet, half-forgotten patch of forest, tucked behind a crumbling state road, down a dirt path so narrow my truck's sides brushed the overgrown branches. No campers in sight. Not even a ranger station. It felt untouched, ancient, perfect. I parked by a creek that trickled lazily through the woods and set up my small green tent just as the sun started to melt into the horizon. By the time the fire was crackling and my dinner was sizzling on the pan, the sky had gone full bruised purple, and the air smelled like smoke and damp earth. For the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. By midnight, the fire had burned down to a low, lazy glow, and the woods were a living thing, humming and whispering and creaking in the dark. I zipped up inside my tent, turned on my little battery lantern, and stretched out in my sleeping bag, listening to the sounds of the night. The occasional hoot of an owl, the high, distant yip of a coyote, the gentle rush of the creek nearby, and then something else, a whisper, right behind the thin nylon wall of my tent. At first, I thought it might just be the wind snaking through the trees, making the branches rub together in just the right way. But no, it was different. It was a voice, low, dry, like someone trying to speak without getting caught. I froze, heart thudding so hard I could hear it pounding in my ears. I strained to listen, every hair on my body standing on end. The whisper came again, soft, broken, as if from a mouth filled with dust. I couldn't make out the words, not at first, but I knew without a doubt that it was speech. I stayed still as a corpse, barely breathing. And then it said my name, clearly, slowly, right against the fabric of the tent. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even loud. It was almost worse because of how gentle it was, like someone bending low to murmur in a lover's ear. A sound made just for me. I fumbled for my flashlight with shaking hands, flicking it on and shining it toward the wall where I thought the voice had come from. The beam hit the thin material, lighting it up like a paper lantern, but there was nothing outside. No shadow, no shape, just empty, black woods. I stayed there, frozen, heart hammering, light shaking in my hand. Minutes passed. Finally, forcing myself to move, I crawled to the zipper of the tent door and, with all the courage I could muster, unzipped it just an inch. I pressed my eye to the opening and peered out. Nothing, just black trees swaying in the faint breeze, the dying embers of my fire sending up thin, weak smoke. I zipped it back up, tighter than before, and tried to tell myself it was just the wind, or maybe I was half dreaming, already drifting off. That's when I heard it again. But this time, it was inside the tent. The whisper slithered over my skin like cold fingers. It wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was behind me. No, closer. It was right next to my ear. I didn't think. I just reacted. I scrambled out of my sleeping bag, nearly tearing the tent apart in my panic. I burst through the flap, barefoot, my flashlight swinging wildly in my hand. I didn't even look back. I just ran, crashing through the trees, twigs slicing at my legs, rocks digging into the soles of my feet. The woods that had felt so calm earlier now seemed alive and angry. Branches grabbed at me. Shadows leaned in. I kept running, gasping for breath, heart in my throat, until finally, blessedly, I saw the faint glint of moonlight off the hood of my truck through the trees. I didn't stop to think. I threw myself into the cab, locked the doors, and sat there shaking until the first gray fingers of dawn touched the sky. I didn't go back for the tent, or the gear, or the little lantern still flickering faintly somewhere deep in those woods. I just drove. I drove until the trees thinned and the highway lights made the night less heavy. I told myself it was all in my head, that I was overtired, stressed out, that maybe I had even fallen asleep and dreamed the whole thing. I told myself that. I still tell myself that. But now, months later, I wake up at night sometimes with the covers twisted around my legs, sweat soaking my shirt. My room will be still, the only sound the hum of the ceiling fan. And from the dark corner by my closet, I'll hear it, a whisper, soft, dry, and always saying my name, the voice I left behind in the woods. Follow me home. Story 2. It started as an accident, like most terrible things do. My girlfriend, Lacey, and I had fought the entire week, over nothing important. She thought I didn't listen. I thought she talked too much. Just the dumb sort of fights couples have when they've been together long enough to know how to cut each other deep. We needed a break from screens, from people, from each other, really. So, I suggested a camping trip. It was late in the season. Cold nights, fewer tourists. Most of the state parks were booked or already closed. But there was one, Willow's Bend. Quiet, kind of out of the way, and cheap. I called, and a woman at the front desk said only one site was still open. Campsite 9. Any reason it's still free? I asked, laughing. She hesitated, just for a second. It's further out, she said. Some folks don't like being that far into the woods. That should have been our first clue, but I didn't think much of it. Hell, I liked the idea of isolation. The deeper into the trees, the better. We wanted quiet, and that's what we were going to get. The ranger on duty was a wiry, gray-bearded man named McAllister. He handed us a map with a shaky hand and a slight frown. "You're going 9?" he asked. I nodded. "Just the two of you?" I smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "Unless you've got ghosts out there with room for one more." He didn't laugh, not even a smirk. "Stick to the trail. Don't wander past the tree line. If anything strange happens, come back before dark." Again, should have turned around. But I was trying to prove something to Lacey, to myself, I don't even know. We thanked him, loaded the car, and made our way up the cracked road into the heart of the woods. Campsite 9 was exactly where the map said it would be, far past the others, tucked against a sloping hill where the trees leaned unnaturally inward, like they were eavesdropping. We set up camp quickly. The fire crackled. Lacey made tea, and for a while it felt peaceful. No cell service, just the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze and the occasional hoot of an owl. But even then, before the real fear started, something felt off. The woods were too quiet, not empty, just waiting, like a held breath. Around 10:30, we zipped up inside the tent and tried to sleep. Lacey drifted off almost immediately. I lay there staring at the nylon roof, my stomach twisting with something I couldn't explain. At around 2 a.m., I woke up. I didn't know why. Just one of those sudden snaps of consciousness, like my body knew something was wrong before my brain could catch up. It was silent. Then I saw it, right outside the mesh window of the tent, across the small clearing, maybe 30 feet away. Two glowing eyes stared straight at me. Not bright, not like headlights. Dim, dull, but hollow like staring into the sockets of skull. I froze. My chest locked up. I couldn't scream, couldn't speak. Just stare back, praying I was imagining it. I wasn't. I reached over and shook Lacey, whispering her name. She stirred, annoyed. "What is it?" she mumbled. I pointed. "There's someone out there." She sat up fast, the way people do when fear wakes them. The eyes were gone. I tried to explain, but the more I said, the crazier I sounded. Hollow eyes, glowing from the inside. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was sleep deprived. Maybe. We lay there in silence after that. But sleep was gone. Then we heard it. Crunch. A footstep. Just one. Then another. Slow. Deliberate. Not the scattered rustling of an animal. Not wind. Steps. Moving around the tent in a slow circle. Branches snapped softly under the weight of something. The pattern repeated. Steps, pause, steps again. Around and around. Lacey gripped my hand. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded. I grabbed my flashlight, but when I clicked it on, the beam sputtered weakly before dying. Batteries were fresh that morning. Lacey's phone wouldn't turn on either. Mine lit up for a split second, showed 2:47 a.m., then shut off with a hiss of static. Not a dead battery. Static. It never did that before. Then the growling started. Low. Almost too low to hear. Like it was vibrating the ground beneath us, coming from everywhere and nowhere. It rose and fell, not like a dog, but like something bigger trying to mimic a growl, failing miserably. That was it. We unzipped the tent and bolted for the car. I didn't care if we left the gear. I didn't care if I left my keys in the tent. I just knew we needed to get away. Luckily, I had them in my jacket. The car turned over on the first try. I didn't even look back as I floored it down the winding path, gravel crunching under our tires. We didn't speak until the lights of the ranger station came into view. I don't know what I expected. Comfort. A logical explanation. We burst in, out of breath and pale. McAllister was still at the desk. "You stayed at 9?" He asked again, like he already knew. I nodded, shaky. "There was something out there," I said. Eyes. Glowing. And this sound. He sighed and stood. His boots echoed against the worn wood floor as he walked to a file cabinet behind the counter. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a yellowed manila folder. 1987, he said quietly. Guy named Preston Hale. Camped at 9. Alone. He pulled out a photograph and laid it on the desk. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was an old Polaroid, faded at the edges. A man in his 30s stared blankly at the camera, except his eyes were burned out. Hollow. Black. Like someone had taken a cigarette and slowly gouged them in. He was a park volunteer, McAllister said. Went out to clean up trash left behind by hunters. Never came back. They found his tent, his boots, even his notebook, but not him. Lacey stepped back, hand over her mouth. No one's lasted a full night at that site since, he added. Most people leave before midnight. You almost made it. We left Willow's Bend and never went back. For weeks afterward, I'd see flashes of glowing eyes in the dark corners of my apartment. In reflections, in dreams. They always watched, never blinked, always waiting. Whatever is out there in Campsite 9, it doesn't want you dead. It wants you to see. Story 3. We were supposed to be 3. That was the plan. Me, Jason, and Ryan. A quick weekend escape from work stress, girlfriends, and the noise of city life. Just a quiet patch of woods, a campfire, and beer. But Ryan bailed. Texted that his stomach was acting up. I didn't believe him. He'd been weird all week, like something was bothering him, but he wouldn't say. Whatever. Jason and I still went. 2 still a party in the woods. The place was about 30 miles off the main road, way out near old logging trails barely used anymore. No signal, no GPS, just a paper map and our dumbass confidence. We set up camp around 5 p.m., 2 tents, a little fire pit, and 3 chairs. Jason laughed when he placed the third one. Let's leave it, he said, grinning. For the ghosts. I roll my eyes. You're such a cliché. You say that now. Just wait till midnight. The sun dipped below the trees, and the woods swallowed the light. The silence out there wasn't like city quiet. It was deep, wide, and full, like the world had taken a breath and never let it out. Every crack of a twig felt like a gunshot. We drank a little, talked a lot, laughed. I don't remember the conversation exactly. Something about girls, something about work, the usual. But I remember how we both kept glancing at the third chair, sitting there across from us, empty, its backrest slightly crooked, like it was watching us. Around 1 a.m., the fire began dying. You could feel the temperature drop, fast and sharp. The wind had gone still. The trees didn't move. Not even the leaves rustled. The kind of stillness that makes your skin itch. Then we heard it. A creak. Jason stopped mid-sentence. I looked over. The third chair moved. Not much. Just a twitch. A gentle rock. But it moved. Neither of us said anything. We just stared at it, waiting for the explanation, waiting for wind, a falling leaf, an animal, something. But there was nothing, just that dead firelight and the darkness pressing in. Then the chair creaked again, slower this time, longer, like weight had settled into it. Jason whispered, "Did you see that?" I nodded. My throat was dry. It's probably, I don't know, would shifting or some. And then we heard it, breathing, right next to us. Heavy, wet, close. It had that sound, like someone with water in their lungs. A deep, rattling exhale that seemed to come from all directions. I turned to Jason, and the look on his face told me he heard it too. I stood up, slowly. My legs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. I pulled out my phone, thumb shaking as I hit the power button. Dead. Completely. Jason fumbled for his flashlight. Click. Nothing. The breathing got louder. It wasn't just in our ears anymore. We felt it, vibrating in our chests, like it was inside us. The third chair scraped. That sound, metal legs dragging slowly through gravel and dirt, is burned into my brain. It didn't tip, didn't fall. It dragged, inching closer to the fire pit, closer to us. Jason grabbed my arm and whispered, "Run." And we did. No plan, no gear. We just ran. Through pitch-black trees and thick underbrush, branches slapping our faces, roots catching our feet. I don't even know how we made it back to the car without breaking bones. We didn't speak on the drive home. Not a word. We just drove until the trees disappeared behind us, and the road was lit by street lamps and gas stations. When we finally got to my place, we sat in silence on the porch, shaking, drinking warm beer we forgot we had in the trunk. The next day, we called the ranger station and told them we left gear behind. They offered to escort us back, which honestly made me feel like less of a coward. We went in broad daylight, 3 rangers with us. Our stuff was still there, but something was off. The firewood was scattered. Our cooler had been dumped. Jason's tent had been slashed open, clean, symmetrical cuts. And around the fire pit, the dirt told a story. 3 sets of footprints. One set was mine. Boots. One was Jason's. Sneakers. The third, barefoot, toes spread, dragging between steps, like the person had to pull one leg behind them. Jason stared at the marks. The ranger next to him mumbled, "What the hell?" We didn't answer. We didn't want to. I haven't been camping since. Can't even sit around a fire without feeling that breath on my neck. That wet, rattling breath. Sometimes I wake up at night and swear I hear the scrape of a chair on the floorboards outside my bedroom door. But I live alone, and I don't own a third chair.